Welcome to Backstage, the Enharmonic. I'm your host, Sean J. Kennedy. Today's guest is Jeff Sipe. I've been a fan of Jeff Sipe's drumming for well over 20 years now. I've been fortunate the last few years that I've been able to perform with Jeff during the Jerry Garcia Symphonic Tour. When they made stops in New Jersey and New York, I was in the percussion section in the orchestra. And besides performing with Jeff, we got to hang backstage and spend some time together. Jeff is an inspiration at the drums and away from them. So I hope you enjoy this edition of Backstage at the Enharmonic.
Hi, Jeff. Are you there?
I am here.
Hey, thanks for taking some time to be on the podcast, Jeff.
Oh, what a privilege. What an honor. Thank you.
So all of my guests, I asked them the same question. It's a great starting point, and it literally goes back to the beginning. Do you have a clear memory of the first time some music had an impact on you?
Absolutely. I do remember, and I'm told that even earlier, I was standing in front of, as a young toddler, standing in front of the speakers of the stereo system, just facing the speaker and dancing along with whatever was playing there. But later on, I have a solid memory of going to the piano and finding the melody of A Silent Night. And I figured out how to play the melody after, fooling around with some intervals. And I found that I could do it. And it was a joyous feeling to actually physically manifest what was in my head as a memory. And that was just a beautiful feeling. So I can't describe the emotion other than joy, really.
So when did you start drums? Did you have formal lessons? Did you start in school? Like, where did that all begin for you, drums and percussion?
Sure, yeah. When I was 10 years old, my family moved to Frankfurt, Germany, because my dad was stationed over there. And so I was in the 6th grade, and they were starting a band. So they distributed a piece of paper to all the students in the school listing all the available instruments if you wanted to join the band. And I looked it over, and my eyes were drawn to drums and percussion. So I circled that, and I went home and asked my folks if I could do that. And my dad said, well, what about clarinet? What about flute? And I said, no, Dad, drums are really, that's what I want to do. And they said, fine, great, go ahead. And I remember my very first lesson, I had a pair of drumsticks, but I didn't have a practice pad. So they asked everybody just to bring something to hit. And so my mom gave me the cutting board that she used in the kitchen. It was a small one. So I brought that, and that was my first practice pad. The instructor found a room for us, and the first thing I learned was the grip, how to hold the sticks, and how to let the stick bounce by itself. Before any strokes or any music or anything, he just wanted to get me to feel how the stick rebounded in my hand against the playing surface. So then we went to double strokes, and I found that the stick really could play itself if you let it. And that was my first insight into technique. And that's how we started. And it was a really joyous experience, too. It was kind of magical. I don't know why, but I saw the magic in it. And so then they gave me a practice card. And the practice card had the days of the week. It was green, rectangular practice card. And I was asked to practice 10 minutes a day. And I went home, and 10 minutes went by so fast, I said, well, I'm just going to go the extra mile and go 15 minutes. So I put the extra time in, more than I was asked to do, and I found the joy in that. And then I was off and running. We were staying in an apartment complex where the neighbors had an older son that had a drum, and he wanted to sell it. It was a snare drum. I think it was an old Ludwig. And so I asked my mom and dad if I could get that drum. And they said, well, you'll have to work for it. And I said, okay, great. And they assigned me a task to sweep the stairways every day, and I would get $10 a week for that. So I put 5 weeks into it, and he sold me the snare drum for $50. And my dad saw that I was interested and serious about it. so I asked for a drum set, and he said, "Well, let's wait, do a few performances at school, and if you stick with it, and if you're serious, we'll consider it." And really, just a few weeks went by, and he took me to the drum store. And while I looked through the magazines of drum sets, he went over to the piano area because he really wanted a piano. And he was shopping for a piano while I was shopping for a drum set. And I found a Trumsa, which is like a Sonor knockoff, a German-made drum set named Trumsa. And the color was Tiger Stripe Sparkle. And he kind of laughed at it. Yeah. It matched the seat on my Sears bike. It's the same kind of finish. And I was just so happy. And my dad got what he wanted. He got a piano, and I got a drum set. And that's how it all started.
Do you still have any of those original instruments that you got as a child?
No, I sold those and upgraded to a Ludwig when I came back to the States. In I guess I was starting ninth grade, high school, and so I got a Ludwig. It had already been owned previously, 3 other owners, and it was not in great shape, but it was a good deal. And it was pink champagne sparkle, and I loved that drum set. And then over the years, by the time I had graduated, I had stripped off pink champagne and found out it was pine wood underneath it, and lacquered those, and I had a natural stain, and it was new to me again. Yeah,
I did the same thing in high school. I ripped off the covers and I stained it because I wanted a new drum set, so there it was.
There it was.
Yep. Now, when you first started over in Germany with lessons, were you playing match grip or traditional?
I was playing traditional grip. That's the way I was taught. But in the first few weeks, I switched to match grip because my mentor, Tommy Belt, who was a year older than me, had long hair. He was playing in a rock and roll band and had a girlfriend, was playing match grip. And I wanted to be like Tommy Belt. And he said, Billy Cobham plays this way. Oh, who's Billy Cobham? And, he explained that since stands could make your drums level, they don't have to be tilted, that you could play match grip this way. And so I took him at his word, and then I started playing match grip, and that's the way I've been doing it ever since.
And I guess you went the traditional route with the book Stick Control by George Lawrence Stone and some of those books?
Yeah, those books came to me probably 11th grade or 12th grade, and Jim Chapin's book, and the Stick Control. So then I found, in my senior year, I found a great teacher who's named Dave Palomar, who was in Washington, D.C., and he was playing with the Airmen of Note, the Air Force Jazz Band. They were incredible. He was discovered when he was 18 and was told that he had the slot in the band when he graduated if he wanted to. So I think he was about 25 years old when I met him, and he started teaching me. I only had 6 lessons with him, but he gave me a foundation that I still practice. Every time I practice, every day, I go to those 6 lessons that he taught me. And they're core, they're the foundation. I'm so glad that I got some words of wisdom and studied with him. He gave me a great start.
I assume you played in rock bands outside of school. Did you also play in academic groups like the concert band, the jazz band, marching band, and all that stuff?
Yes, I was in the band from the 9th grade, but I always wanted to be in the jazz band because it was just thrilling to listen to. Those big band arrangements is really what I wanted to do. I got turned on to fusion music when I was probably 15. So I heard Miles Davis 4 or More. I found out about Tony Williams, and then I went backwards and found out about Charlie Parker, and I discovered all roads pretty much connect to those 2 fellows, Charlie Parker and Miles Davis. Everybody who's played with them and associated with them were all my favorites, and then leading into the fusion world, when jazz went electric, I was right there in high school when it was all happening. So I was listening to Return to Forever and Mahavishnu Orchestra. That stuff was just thrilling. So I started listening really heavily to that. And in high school, like I said, I wanted to be a part of the jazz band, but I was never allowed in until finally I made it into my senior year. And so there was already a drummer ahead of me that was a really good reader. And so he was given all the best charts, and he was the first choice for the band, and I was the second guy. And we were playing a Stanley Clarke tune in 5/4 off of his first record, and I think it was called Children of Forever. I have to go back and find that. And it was in 5/4, and we were rehearsing, and it was a real dynamic chart, so I could really lean into it pretty well. And I remember we had a tri-state competition between, I was in school in Fairfax, Virginia. So we had D.C., and I'm not in Maryland, I forget. But we were up against Langley, a high school jazz band, and they won just about it for the best in the area. So I was really excited to be there. I remember playing this chart, and the band director, who didn't have full confidence in me, it was kind of like Whiplash, if you've ever seen the movie Whiplash.
Yeah.
It's about almost as intense as that. Not quite, but very serious,
Yeah.
Do great for him. But I was determined to make this performance all. I remember lifting the band, particularly in one section where it got dynamic, and I had a chance to lift the whole band up during a solo. And I went for it. And he looked over at me with a combination of concern and delight and surprise when I started digging in, And so it was a great performance. I thought I did okay, And I was sitting in the audience when they were announcing all the winners of the different competitions or whatever. And I was sitting next to a girl that I kind of liked. She was a drummer, and I was trying to get a date. And my name was called for Best Rhythm Section Performer. And I was shocked. She was poking me, and it's like, that's you, go up there. So I went up to the stage, and I received the award, and I was surprised. And then afterwards, on the way out of the auditorium, I saw one of the judges, and I was with my parents, and I asked if I could go over there and talk with him a minute. So I went over and I asked him, why did you choose me? I just want to know, because there was another drummer that gave a solo that was brilliant, and I thought for sure he would be given an award. And he looked at me and told me, he said, you were a team player, and you made the band sound really great, and that stuck with me. I suddenly realized that, the drummer has the power to really elevate the music. If it's done well, the whole band is going to sound better if the drummer really is doing his gig. And so that stuck with me, and I try to remember that. Yeah. Anyway,
that's great.
Yeah.
So, your dad played. You said your dad bought a piano when you were at the store. Did your family play music together ever?
Well, my dad traveled a lot, but when he came home, he enjoyed winding down, and he would play some piano. And he played as a kid, and I think he always really wanted to develop that even more than he did. But the thing that I remember most about that experience was the sound of the piano. When he played, it had a velvet touch. It was like Bill Evans, who I discovered later on. And his chords and his touch was so gentle and velvety. That's the thing I remember most. And so I think he would have spent a lot more time with it if that was his first call in life. Mm-hmm. But music was real important to him. My mom and dad met in the church choir. So they were, their foundations, music brought them together. And they were always supportive of me. Anything I wanted to do, even in the rock band I played in high school, there were two guitar players that were 2 years older than I, and they asked me to join their band. And they turned me on to all kinds of rock and roll I had never heard before. And so my folks were very encouraging. Anytime I had a chance to rehearse and play and hang out with those guys, they let me do it. Especially if it was at my house, because my mom told me she liked to keep an eye on what we were doing, and that she allowed us. She opened up the garage to us and let us play and hang out. And she always knew I was safe. So, that's what I'm hoping to do with my children. Just let them do their thing here, so I can keep an eye on them.
Right. Exactly. Invite everyone over to our house. Yep.
That's right. Yeah. So my mom was like a second mother to those guys and the musicians that would come over and hang out. And they still call and keep in touch with her as a second mom.
That's beautiful. So it's funny how small the music world is the longer you stay in it. I'm just going to give you a quick aside. I never told you this before, but it's my path to Jeff Sipe, kind of transcendental sounding. But I was in a rock band back in college in '94, and we were playing hits of the 50s and 60s. It was at an amusement park. It was like a doo-wop old rock and roll thing. And this bass player that I was with kept saying, you have to listen to this group called the Aquarium Rescue Unit. I'm like, all right, whatever. But, we lived right next to each other in the housing and everything. So finally, one day, we're sitting around, he puts on the CD, and I remember when I first heard the Aquarium Rescue Unit, it was like the ceiling of the apartment almost opened up. I'm like, what is this? What's happening? I'm like, who's the drummer? And lo and behold, it was you back in 1994. And ever since then, I've been a huge fan. And I was following your career on recordings, of course. And then maybe 10 years ago, you went to my buddy's school and did a clinic, and I'm like, you're the guy. So I thought that was as good as it was going to get. I thought that was it. I had reached the top of, the Jeff Sipe mountain. And then, lo and behold, the last 2 years, we met on stage, and we did the Jerry Garcia concerts with Warren Haynes on the on the East Coast here. So it's unbelievable how small the music business really is.
Yeah, you're right. I think of it as a bunch of cousins that we haven't met yet. But we're just, we're part of the same family, and when we do meet, we recognize each other.
Oh, that's a great way to say it. Perfect. Yeah, so those concerts were a lot of fun, man. You talking about supporting the band, what you just did, going back to your high school trophy, the same thing I could say when we did our last concert at Central Park. You drove the orchestra, you drove the band, but then when it was your time to, shine, everyone was on their feet. And then you went back to your supportive role and really propelled the orchestra and the band, which I think is so key to a great drummer, because I'm sure you see drummers too. They're great drummers, but maybe they don't know when to hold back and support. So you do both aspects of drumming incredibly, and me and the other percussionists just loved watching you every night at those concerts.
Wow, thanks so much. That thrills me to the core. I had a blast with the symphony, and it's something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to play in a symphony orchestra, but I never dreamed that I'd be playing drum set, and in a modern context and in front of the orchestra. And what a thrill to have 54, 60, 80 people behind you. It's probably one of the greatest thrills of my musical career. Glad to share that with you.
And me too, exactly. Yeah, it was incredible. So I hope we get to do it again sometime.
Oh, yes, I feel like we will.
Excellent. So let's see, do you do any teaching?
I do, and I require, I need to do some teaching, and I love to do some teaching. So I have a garage that's been turned into a studio. I've got my kit, and then I've got a second kit that can be very low set for my young students, and they can raise up to full adult size also. So it's a Sonar Martini kit, and it's a blast to play. I tune it low with coated heads on it so I can still get a full round sound. And they're really controlled sounding. The bass drum is only 16 inches, but I've got it tuned as low as it could possibly go and still produce a tone. And I'm having a great time with that. I've got some microphones set up, and I finally got Logic Pro, so I can start recording now. I've got a few drum tracks that I'm working on, and that teaching for me is really a sacred thing, and it's so beneficial, not only to the students but to me too, because when you're teaching, you have to describe what you're playing, and if you have to describe what you're playing, you have to have thought about it and know what you're talking about and know what you're trying to deliver. So it's a challenge for me to teach because it forces me to clarify my thoughts and my technique and my demonstrations. And when I see the young kids finally get a groove or some independence or coordination, and I see that light bulb and that smile, everything's it makes it all worth it. Also, when the gigs, the calendar is always a roller coaster when you're a self-employed jazz drummer trying to work in all these different genres. So when the calendar is real busy, I don't have time for teaching, or if I do some teaching, it'll be during sound check or after sound check on the road when we're all set up and everybody takes a break. I'll do a little video clip of a simple idea, and I'll mail that to my students. And then they'll mail me back a video of them once they've got it complete. So we keep in touch that way. And then when I'm off the road, not touring, I'm back to teaching at home and doing local gigs. I've got a handful of students. The adults come and go, but the kids remain. I've had students that stay 4 years and then move on. And that's just it's really fulfilling for me to see them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's so true what you said about, you might be able to do it, but when you have to explain it to somebody else, it's deepening your knowledge of whatever the concept is, because maybe the first time you explain it, it's not going to work for that kid. You have to explain it again, and then it's reinforcing it to you. It reminds me of Jeff Coffin. You've participated in many of his workshops. When he compares it to a tree, you see the tree, but the roots are under the ground. They're just as big as the tree or bigger. So the whole teaching thing ties into that, which is wonderful.
Yes. Jeff Coffin is a deep fella. He really understands education, but he combines spirit with it. So it's never just academic. It's always he gives you food for thought, and even above that, he gives you the demonstration of how joyous it really is. He laughs, and he's serious, and then he laughs again, so it's he represents music very well, I think, in all its aspects, because everything from a joyful noise all the way down to your individual practice on specific techniques, all of it, is serious and inspiring at the same time. I say inspiring because the word spirit lives inside that word. So combining your aspirations and your spirit and your technique and your devotion and love to music, it's such a beautiful world, man. It's a huge world. It's a safe world. It's therapy. It's so many things. Music is the universal language, and it blows me away every time I think about it. No matter where you go on the planet, no matter who you meet, you can sing intervals and you'll feel the same thing together. You can sing a major interval and there's happiness. You sing a minor interval and there's sadness, no matter who you are. You sing a tritone and there's discomfort, no matter who you are on the planet. And that way, if you don't speak the same verbal language, you certainly feel the same language emotionally. And that's what I love about music.
Now, this next question, I ask all my listeners, and I can guess what your answer is going to be, but I'll ask the question, and I'll let you field the answer. Do you listen to music for pleasure?
Absolutely. I mean, there is no background music for me. It's impossible. If something's playing and somebody's talking, my ear goes to the music, and I find myself asking, I'm sorry, what did you say? It takes my ear right away, and I have to
Right.
turn the music off if I'm having a conversation because there is no background music for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. There is no background music for me. I'm gonna put that on my studio wall. But there is no background music for me, Jeff Sipe. I think I'll make a plaque.
That's how I feel. There was a comment.
Yeah, that's great.
I posted. Mike Seal, a great musician, posted something on Facebook. It was a Bach piece that he and a partner were playing as a duet. And I'm a proponent of Mike Seal, and I try to spread the word of Mike Seal wherever I go. One of my favorite musicians. So he posted a brilliant, beautiful piece. And there was a bunch of comments. Go, Mike, go. That's great. It's beautiful. Debussy rocks. And then there was one comment that said background music. That's all it said. So I instantly replied. Instantly replied, defending Mike, saying there is no background music if you're listening. Period.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. That's even better. That's my second plaque I'll make and put in my studio.
And there was no response to that one. I just...
Of course. So outside of the music world, do you have time for anything else? Do you have any hobbies or activities that you like to do not connected to music directly?
Yes, music rules my life, but my family is, of course, the most important. So, with the support that I get from my wife and my kids to follow my art and try to make a living doing this is paramount, and it's there. So if I go on the road, I ask them, is this okay if I do this and this and this and run it by them? And they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Go do it, Dad. We understand you'll be gone for 6 weeks. It's okay. Go ahead. So I have the love and support from family. And when I'm not playing, I'm home doing stuff for the kids, for my wife, and trying to make the house as nice as it can be. And that's my joy. I have a garden, fantastic garden. Just made some spaghetti sauce with all my tomatoes that I harvested yesterday, and it was sweet and aromatic and beautiful, and that was wonderful. So it's mostly family, We go camping, we go hiking, we go waterfalling, we go tubing and kayaking. We live in a beautiful area in the southern Appalachian. There's more than 260 waterfalls in my immediate community. So I feel blessed to live here, and I feel blessed to have my loving family and support. I'm blessed that they're all healthy. And, when I'm off the road, this is my sanctuary.
Excellent, man. Well, we music fans and musicians are blessed to have you playing drums for us and inspiring us and the next generation of drummers out there. So thank you for all of that.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. If I didn't tour, if I didn't meet anybody, I'd be doing this exact same thing. So I'm really pleased to be doing something I love and making a career out of it.
That's beautiful. Underneath this podcast, for the listeners, I'm going to put a link to your website so they can find out your goings-on and your recordings and all that, and stay in touch with Jeff Sipe.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate it. And once again, really nice to spend some time with you, share the stage with you, and get to know you a little bit better. Thank you.
Right back at you, Jeff. So, again, thanks for taking some time, and I hope to see you soon.
Okay, we'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Today's soundtrack was provided by the Jeff Sipe Trio. Please visit Jeff's website to download a copy for yourself. Thanks for listening.